What's going on YouTube? This is DestinyHeroic, and this is going to be the deck profile for the Vylon Assault deck that I did a profile for, or I did a demonstration for a few weeks ago. So I've changed up the format of my deck profile to maybe save time. So let's get right into it here. So the monster lineup for pretty much all of my Vylon decks is pretty much the same. 2 Neutrons, 3 Trident Warriors, and 2 Photon Thrashers. I like the 3 Tridents and the 2 Photons because once you've established your field, Trident Warrior, if you draw it later on, is still potentially live, where a Photon Thrasher is not. There are some people who like to play 3 Photon Thrashers, and that's to draw them and be able to use them earlier on. But I disagree with that logic, because when you draw them late game, they're useless, completely useless, and a Trident Warrior isn't. So that's that. And for tuners, I'm running 3 cubes, 3 Vylon Stellas. They're both level 3 Vylons. Notably, cube is the only machine tuner in this deck, so that's what we'll be searching for with Gen X. I'm using 3 Vylon Prisms, and of course the 1 Honest to go with all the light monsters. So it's a pretty slim monster count. This is a combo-oriented deck, so we're going to be focusing on just what we need. And moving into the spells, first of all, this is an element loop, and it's the center of the deck, so we're using 2 Chaos and a full 3 elements. We want to be able to see these cards as fast as possible. Chaos is really not very useful outside of the loop, so we want to be able to search it, but also still have a little bit of consistency for opening with it. So I went with 2 instead of 3. It also saves a little bit of space for other things in the deck. I'm using a full 9 equip cards, 3 filaments, 3 materials, and 3 components. Of the Vylon equips that are available currently, I feel that these are probably the most useful. If your opponent is sitting behind a Spirit Reaper, you can equip a component and pierce through it for a lot of damage repeatedly. Vylon Filament makes you immune to the 2 Mirror Force we're now allowed to play, and Material just boosts, which is always good. There's a lot more recycling going on in this deck, so we're using 2 Vylon Matter, and also I'm running a Pot of Avarice, so we'll be able to keep going through our monsters even after we've made a bunch of Exceed monsters. Darkhold and Reborn are obvious. Pot of Duality is to add the consistency of getting into our combo pieces earlier on. And for Spell and Trap removal, I'm using Heavy Storm and Release Restraint Wave, which is basically just another heavy Storm, which is entirely compatible with this deck because there are so many equips. So there's no traps in this deck, so let's move on to the extra deck lineup. For Vylon extra deck cards, I'm using 2 Sigmas, 1 Epsilon, and 1 Disigma. Sigma is the one we'll most likely be seeing, and he'll be the token Vylon that we'll play in order to activate our Vylon Cube effect. It's actually kind of difficult to make an Epsilon, and he's not really all that useful in this deck, but he's still there just in case you do have to use a Photon Thrasher and a Vylon Prism to put a big Vylon on the field in order to finish your opponent off and clear their monster away. Disigma is there for the controlling element because we do always make a rank 4 triple overlay in this combo. So moving on, we're using the 1 Ancient Sacred Wyvern. If you don't make Sigma, you'll probably make this guy, and it's a light, so it'll still activate Vylon Cube's effect. The only way you probably make Sigma over this guy would be if your cube is under the restriction of Vylon Element. If you bring it out with Element, you can only use it for a Vylon Synchro. So if you open with a Trident Warrior and a cube, you'll most likely make this guy. And of course, we have the token Stardust Dragon. Shockmaster is the other rank 4 triple overlay that we'll be using. This is to block the predicted Gores drop or the mirror force or whatever it is that you feel would stop your OTK. Number 17 Leviathan Dragon is one of the best level 3 rank 3 exceed beaters available. We have number 17, or not, sorry, number 39 Utopia and Utopia Ray. There's no reason not to run Utopia Ray in a deck that runs Utopia. For further rank 4s, we've got Steel Swarm Roach. Roach is really good if you can't kill your opponent, but you want to restrict their actions on the next turn. Giga Brilliant is really nice in this deck. It's a light, so it works at honest. It can pump up your weaker Exceed monsters that you want to live throughout the turn. I'm using one Tempo. The last 2 slots, actually, Tempo and Papilloperative here, are pretty much wildcard slots. Tempo is to deal with people who like to sit behind a Zen mains. Now that everybody has a sea of Zen mains in their binders, you can expect to see them a lot more in matches. So Tempo is a great way to rob Zen mains of both of its materials and maybe push some other attacks through. Papilloperative is also a really nice way of dealing with a Zen mains by putting it in attack mode and setting its attack at 900. If you don't like to use these 3 guys, there's some other suggestions I have. There's always Ivigishki Merogeist. I really like this guy. If he punches over something, you can throw it back to the deck instead of going to the graveyard. It doesn't actually hit the graveyard, so that's important to notice. It's just a generic rank 4. You could also use a Maestroke if you want to turn something face down, so you can attack over it and push some damage through. That has a really elegant synergy with your Vylon component. And of course the Zen mains. You can make rank 3s pretty easily in this deck, obviously. So Zen mains, if you want to crash into something and have it not die, whatever you want to do. If you don't think you're going to last the turn, then you can put a Zen mains out there as the last thing you do, and it will help you survive until the next turn, when you can play your Avarice, play your Vylon Matter, and start your loop over again and start exceeding again. So that's the deck in a nutshell. It's nice and quick. Thanks for the interest in this deck. I know a lot of people at my locals have started building Vylons now because of my Vylon videos. I am working on getting some videos out that involve my Vylon decks. I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately because mostly I'm doing fairly well in tournaments and there's nobody to hold my camera, so it's kind of a problem. But the worst I do in a tournament, I can hold the camera then, so whatever. Anyway, so thanks for watching. I appreciate your feedback, and leave feedback, and rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching.